Итак, мы в эфире, прямой эфир Actors Talk. С вами я, София Ская. И, как я вам и обещала, к нам сегодня повторно вернется великий режиссер Брэтт Рэтнер, который в прошлый раз рассказал нам очень много всего интересного. На самом деле, даже для себя я из каждого интервью, которое происходит на нашем канале в Actors Talk, узнаю очень много нового. И очень интересно узнать, как successful people стали successful, то есть какие моменты в их жизни стали поворотными и сделали так, что они пошли именно по той дорожке и именно этим путем добились успеха. Брett Ratner в прошлый раз рассказал нам о том, как важны личные связи между людьми, что как-то он помог кому-то, и через некоторое время это вернулось к нему грандиозным успехом. Вчера Светлана Ефремова также рассказывала нам о том, что нельзя упускать шанс, который вам предлагает судьба, потому что никому не известно, что спрятано в этом конверте. Поэтому все те, кто интересуется и хочет двигаться вперед, пробовать что-то новое, особенно в такой профессии, как актерское мастерство, наверное, все-таки основным ключом является экспериментировать, ничего не бояться, и главное не стесняться, потому что слово «сделал плохо» в актерском мастерстве не существует. Что бы вы ни сделали, все является всегда хорошим activity for нашей profession. Каждый эфир наш проходит действительно с избранными людьми. Помимо того, что это все мои друзья, которых я очень хорошо знаю, мы еще и смотрим на то, какие советы могут нам дать наши гости и как они могут помочь объединиться миру кино, потому что основная идея, конечно же, после поездки к Люси Ленокс в Испанию стала очень интересной. Действительно, как бы выглядел мир кино, если бы существовала одна единая какая-то база, в которой все актеры, все режиссеры, продюсеры, все находились бы в одном месте, имели возможность познакомиться с каждым участникам, и система была бы, наверное, проще. Тогда и наши российские звезды снимались бы за рубежом, и американские чаще приезжали бы к нам, и как-то все это вместе было бы единым целым. Сейчас я ожидаю, когда Брэтт Рэтнер к нам присоединится. Я помню, что наша беседа закончилась с ним. Я спросила Брэда, я слежу за его инстаграмом, и я вижу, как близко он дружил с Майклом Джексоном. Майкл Джексон — это легенда, он один такой на все времена. И мне было интересно, как вообще судьба свела этих двух людей, и что было у них общего, и как они проводили время. Потому что Майкл Джексон был такой затворник, он не любил выходить. Вот как раз я спросила, что делал бы он сейчас во время пандемии, и Брэтт Рэтнер ответил, что он был бы рад, потому что он никогда не выходил из дома. Но при этом я слышала также, что они очень много путешествовали вместе, смеялись и проводили классное время. Я обязательно спрошу про это. Также сегодня наш повторный, вторичный эфир посвящен вашим вопросам, которые я получила, выписала, но тем не менее я думаю, что сегодня мы сможем пройтись и по чату. Я вижу, что вы мне пишете, я приветствую всех, кто мне пишет, я все вижу на самом деле, и интересные вопросы, которые я увижу из нашего чата, я обязательно задам. Сейчас я по прямому телефону узнаю, куда делся Брэтт. Я знаю, что сегодня у нас эфир произошел не в 8 вечера, как обычно, а в 9, потому что у Бретта Рэтнера были важные переговоры. Возможно, он сейчас developing, возможно, он работает над каким-то новым проектом. К сожалению, вряд ли мы об этом узнаем, потому что, как правило, новые проекты всегда держатся в секрете. Но через буквально несколько минут мы точно поймем, что же за задержка произошла. Набираем. Всем привет, Полиночка, привет. Все, кто меня видит и кто присоединился. Oh, so you're finishing. Okay, I'm live and we're waiting for you. Great. Brad is finishing his conversation. Напоминаю, что разговор наш будет проходить на английском языке. Ребят, учите английский язык, в конце концов. Канал Actors Talk здесь для актеров, и тем более для актеров. Говорю так, хотите узнать мир, говорите на международном языке, потому что очень много о людях и вообще о разносторонности народов можно узнать, только поговорив с ними лично. Вот, это ни в коем случае не хвастовство, это был адский труд, я понимаю, но хотя бы смотрите фильмы на родном языке. Это очень сильно помогает, язык фразовый. Но я вам хочу, вот, признаюсь честно, зная язык, по-другому совершенно воспринимаешь весь мир. Приезжаешь в Париж, пусть французы не любят говорить на английском, но тем не менее они хотя бы пытаются. Ты понимаешь, что там происходит, что здесь. Поэтому наши интервью будут по большей части проходить на английском. Я вас призываю облегчить мне работу с переводом. Вот, и тем более будет возможность напрямую прямо вот спрашивать лично у героев, что вам о них интересно. Ожидаем Брэда, да? Слушаем ваши вопросы. Что рассказать вам еще? Расскажу я вам о том еще, почему я создала такую интересную программу. Конечно, карантин тому поспособствовал. Во время карантина я стала вспоминать и узнавать, как дела за рубежом у моих друзей, потому что шквал информации из новостей и из уст в уста, они были очень устрашающие. Чуть ли не сиди дома, закупайся всем, что только можно, та же туалетная бумага, та же гречка. Вот. Я стала спрашивать в реале, есть ли хоть кто-то из моих знакомых, из знакомых, кто бы, к несчастью, был бы поражен этой инфекцией. Вот. Таким образом я стала просто созваниваться с людьми, и как-то вышли в Zoom, и мы с моей командой, вот FPR-бюро, решили сделать из этого такой интересный интерактив, чтобы, ну, во-первых, конечно, такого не часто встретишь, где актеры общаются между собой, делятся какими-то своими фишками, переживаниями, ведь актеры люди очень эмоциональные и публичные, и, возможно, устают от этого, всякие секреты можно узнать из, вот, наверное, прямого контакта, потому что когда нас приглашают куда-то на ток-шоу, это заготовленные вопросы, это камера, это свет, это волнение, это страх, что вас сейчас вот-вот где-то захотят за что-то уцепить, вспомнить какую-нибудь каверзную ситуацию и так далее. Это всегда присутствует в ток-шоу, потому что, как мы знаем, народ любит всякие такие скандальные штучки. Здесь же мы говорим по душам, и здесь можно узнать правду, здесь можно для себя очень много полезного прямо вот напрямую из героев, из тех, на кого мы хотели бы теоретически быть похожими, узнать. Вот, например, Марк Дакаскос. Ну, кто бы мог подумать, что человек, который играет периодически роли антагонистов, таких плохих ребят, настолько sweet guy, настолько он добр, как он относится к своей семье, как относится к своим детям, что он занимается медитацией, что он постоянно практикует, учит, делает стендап-шоу и так далее. Именно вот благодаря таким интервью можно узнать о человеке что-то, наверное, настоящее. А сейчас мир такой, хочется знать настоящее. Вот мне лично уже перестало быть интересным наблюдать за каким-то кривлянием, под которым уже видно правду. Приходит человек и начинает изображать, что он такой счастливый, давать советы и так далее, а ты видишь, что в глазах у него печаль, потому что, возможно, его ребенок плохо сделал домашнее задание. Итак, мы все ожидаем Бретта Рэтнера, который разбавит мой монолог, превратит его в диалог, расскажет нам много чего интересного. Его еще пока нет, человек занятой, говорит по телефону в LA. Вот, так к чему я говорила о том, что началась эта передача Actors Talk? Я открыла свою компанию, в которой решила совместить сразу несколько видов деятельности, которые необходимы актеру. Видеопродакшн, фотопродакшн, ну и обучение актерскому мастерству. И, конечно же, обучение актерскому мастерству, оно основано на американской методике, которую я училась уже 9 лет, на основе Стэнфорда Майзнера. Я вижу, что Брett Ratner к нам подключился. Вот, сейчас я его присоединю, но все-таки доскажу. Так вот, таким образом, когда я общаюсь снова со всеми своими коллегами, друзьями, со всеми теми, с кем мы проводили много времени и понимали, о чем мы говорим на одном киношном языке, подобная передача сблизит нас. И, конечно же, в дальнейшем на базе Real Art Studio мы сможем проводить мастер-классы, встречаться лично и уже выносить какую-то пользу из этих интервью. То есть это только начало. Следите за нами. Будет дальше интереснее и интереснее. Я возвращаюсь подсоединяюсь к Брэду, Брэтт Рэтнер.
So sorry. Oh my God.
Yay!
You
Here
you
you are.
you weren't answering me. I kept writing hearts and kisses and everything. And how are you?
I'm great. Well, how are you? How have you been since the time we
Well, look,
talked?
my beard has gotten much longer since we've spoken.
Are
My
you going to
beard
keep it
keeps
this
growing.
way?
No, because I think it makes me look very old. I look like an old rabbi. So
You look
I'm gonna
more like a biker,
yeah, I'm
I'd
gonna
say.
shave. I'm gonna shave soon. And you won't recognize me because I'm gonna have a face as clean as yours. I have a very clean. But you know what I'm gonna do though? I'm waiting for it
What?
to open because I want to do the razor. I've never had a shave with a professional, with cream and a professional
Oh,
razor.
you mean
Usually
to go to the salon,
to the
you
salon
know?
because I usually just do a trimmer, right? So I want to do a real shaver. You've been
I'm
so
always scared to watch how somebody else is
scary.
doing
It's a
that with the
blade.
light.
It's very sharp,
Yes.
very sharp. But by the way, you've been so busy. You've been doing so many of these, so many great. I've watched some of them. They're fantastic. You have like a
Thank you.
real thing happening now with all your great interviews, and it's amazing.
Thank you so much. I really try to put everyone together in order for future to actually
Yeah,
invite these people to throw master classes and
yeah,
to just all of us keep in touch. And yes, it's going really well. And also, I get so much thanks from actors, from people from our industry, because everything we're talking about is a rare information. Usually, you guys
yeah,
go on a talk show and
yeah.
there is very strict, like I was born there and I do this
Right.
and I do that, and everyone's like, oh, it's so boring, but here's the real thing.
But also, by the way, how did you get a haircut? Did you go to the salon or you did it yourself?
Actually, it's a hairstyle. I
Oh,
before
okay.
I had it back.
Oh, back.
Now
Okay.
I
It looks
just
great.
put it.
It looks great.
Yes,
It looks
I'm
great.
trying to be different. Somebody
Yes.
taught me that the actress has to be different. So,
Well, speaking of actresses and hair, I want to tell you that every time I do a movie, there's always one actor that has an issue with the hair. And they always they come to me and they say, Brett, I remember in Red Dragon, Edward Norton, two movies I remember. Edward Norton said in Red Dragon, Brett, I want to be blonde. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. Because I've never seen a good blonde dye job. His hair is brown like mine. Now mine's gray, but his hair is brown.
yeah,
And
probably it looked yellow.
oh, oh my God. And
The
also when you photograph, and I fought him and fought him and fought him, but actors have this thing where when they create a character, the way that they create the character is through the hair. The hair is defining, and with men, it's usually here. It's usually here.
hmm
But Edward says, I want to dye my hair. And it was the one thing in every movie I ever made that I regret letting him do, letting him
Uh,
dye his hair. Because when I look at the movie, I'm so distracted by his blonde, bleached hair. He says, no, I live on the beach. I live in
so
Florida.
what, Brad? So what
Yeah.
to do in those situations where there is a conflict on set like this, or even bigger? Like how to, you should say yes for actor to be happy, or if you
It
know
depends
for
if it's
sure
gonna
that
hurt.
it's not gonna
Yeah.
work. Like
It
how
depends
do?
if it's gonna hurt my my story. Because at the end of the day, it might hurt my ego. It might hurt my you know other
Mood.
things. But as long as it doesn't hurt the story. For me, that hurt the story because I've
Mm,
compromised with other ways. But for me, yes, everyone loves the movie. In retrospect, it's a great movie. Most people, maybe only a few people, have mentioned it to me. Oh, what is his hair blonde? I did it also in that same movie. I let Anthony Hopkins put his hair only in the scene when he wasn't in jail, in the opening. I
uh-huh.
let him put it in a ponytail.
I remember that
Uh,
moment, and
and
you don't like it?
No, because it's like a man. It's not a man bun like on top, but it's like a little. What does a 60-year-old man have a little ponytail? He was trying to be hip, and I don't know. That film, I have two hair problems. that and it was for me it was a compromise. Every movie you have to make compromises.
So
There
what,
was
for
one.
example?
There was one movie where I did After the Sunset with Woody Harrelson, and Woody Harrelson showed up on one day at the rehearsal when we were filming the actors for the costume and the wardrobe, and he showed up with a goatee. He had a mustache and just
Oh,
this, like if I shaved everything, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" He says, "Oh, it's my character," and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." That's crazy. You look like a serial killer. You look like you kill people. You're a police officer. Police officers are supposed to be clean shaven. They're not supposed to be too stylish. And then he's an FBI agent. FBI agents don't have beards unless they're undercover, right?
so what is it about actors to try to put something? Do they think it's a little trick that's gonna be memorable or
No,
something?
I think they, especially if they've done a lot of movies, they want to look different in every
They want
movie.
to
It's
try
it's
it.
on it's understandable. It's understandable. They want to look different in every movie. They want to, try to create something that's unique, different from who they are, from their persona. So for me, I understand, and that's why it's a negotiation. But I always want to be cautious because when you said, "Oh, it's something I'm trying," it's a different hairstyle. I understand the need and the desire to look different. Look, I look crazy. People watching this are like, look, probably all my friends who I see are on here, Dasha and Sarah, and my friends that are on here are looking at me going, "What the hell is going on with Brett? He's never looked like this before." I'm still the handsome, blue-eyed Jewish boy that I've always been, but I have a beard now. So,
But
um,
your eyes
so
are shining. Your eyes are
yes.
shining. Well,
Well, because when I see you, you bring the light. You bring the light. Mhm.
thank you. Well, you said the story about those conflicts about the hair, and I have a question. Um, is there, is it often happens, any other conflicts? And did you have a situation, you personally, with
Yeah.
a conflict on set between actors, and how do you resolve that, and how can it be
Well,
in
in particular, since we mentioned
uh,
Edward Norton, I had a very big conflict with Edward Norton.
yes, tell me.
On the first time, I don't know if maybe I didn't tell you this, but on the first time I was shooting him in the scene with Anthony Hopkins, and it was the first time his character was going to see him since he had been almost killed by Anthony Hopkins.
Hmm.
So when I saw the scene play and we started filming, I noticed that Edward, and he does something very interesting, which is almost non-acting. He's so naturalistic and so real,
Hmm.
but he's very subtle, very subtle.
Hmm.
And after a few takes, I said, I want to have a conversation with you. I said, let's talk about this situation. You haven't seen this guy. He tried to kill you. I think there would be some fear. I think you're afraid. And he says, yes, I'm terrified of him. I said, well, you have to show that. You have to show that because you're not showing that you're scared. And he says to me, well, I am. Trust me. And I said, well, I'm looking at you, and I did one take where I looked through the camera. I said, I'm not seeing any fear. He says, trust me, the audience will see it. I said, no, no, no. They're not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. They're not seeing it. And he says, well, let me do it again. Let me do it again. I said, I'm not seeing it. I said, we have to come up with something that's going to, he says, but remember, Brett, I don't want him to know I'm afraid. I'm not like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. Jodie Foster in Silence of the
Hmm.
Lambs was a student of the FBI. I am an agent. I have solved many cases, and I am more of a professional. So I know not to show him my fear. Even though, remember in the other movie, he said, I could smell the fear on you, Anthony Hopkins' character. So
Right.
I said, we have to do something. He says, well, make a suggestion, Brett. This took 4 hours of negotiating with him. I said, well, maybe we should put or maybe we should, have you some nervous tick or something.
There's
Something that
the
shows
most, it's
nervosity
the hardest thing to actually feel and cover it, because by
and
covering
express.
it, you
So
can
every
kill the
time
actual
yeah,
feeling.
of course. So every time, so the key is, which it made sense. He did not want Anthony Hopkins' character to know that he was afraid. But I wanted the audience to know. It was important that the audiences understood. Every
Right.
suggestion I made, he said, bad idea.
Ouch.
Tap your foot, shake your legs. Everything I did, everything, because he said it's called indicating. That's bad acting, because you're doing something that's showing something. I said, come up with something, and I wanted to kill him. I was so
His
frustrated.
ego was much higher than the actual.
But he was challenging me. No, he didn't agree, and he's very stubborn. He didn't agree, and we argued and argued. Anthony Hopkins went back to his trailer. We went back and forth, and then, oh my God, a light bulb went off. I said, I have an idea. And I called the production designer in front of him. And I said, can you build 2 walls? One wall this way, one wall this way, and get a coffee machine and put it in the corner of the 2 walls, and put a chair there. It's not written in the script. But after you give Anthony Hopkins the file, after the scene, in between the 2 scenes, you're going to go get a coffee. When you sit down to get a coffee, you're going to take off your jacket, and your armpits are going to be completely wet. His arm is going to be wet. He said, that I will do. And I loved it when I showed the audience. I was in an audience, sitting in the. I usually sit in the middle, and he took off his jacket, and I can hear people saying, "Look, he's sweating. He's scared. He's scared."
So great idea.
So what I'm saying is, even if an actor is being difficult, even if an actor is challenging you, even if an actor is being impossible, and your back is against the wall, sometimes it forces a great idea. So I like if it wastes 4 hours, it's not good, because I need that time to film.
And then the energy is out.
No, but it served its purpose, because we ended up coming up with something very, very good, that was strong, that was clever, that I wouldn't have come up with. I would not have thought of that unless he challenged me. So I think there's a different way. If there's actors watching, I think there's a way that actors could approach your director or approach an idea. It's better to do it before they get to the set, I would say.
That's true.
But it's worth it, because it ends up being something that is magic. Sometimes the stuff that you come up with on a movie set in the last minute.
Yes, and if you would give up and follow his idea, you would probably break the relationship throughout the movie. You wouldn't be the same, to each other. There will be something holding on, probably. So it's very good to negotiate.
So there's been other instances where, I think it's good. And every actor is different. You have to understand. People say, do you like to rehearse? Do you like to prepare? How do you prepare? How do you do this? I prepare more than any person can ever imagine. But the other thing I do is, when I get to the set, I throw it all away.
Explain.
All my preparation. Both technically and psychologically. So if I draw, there's storyboards. Every shot is planned. So I draw every shot that I want, or I think I want, in a scene. When I get to the set, I don't even look at it.
Yeah,
I don't ever
reference
it. It's not that just it's in my head. The effort spending drawing and coming up with the shots, because if you shoot exactly the board, then you're doing something very stringent, very very structured, very stifled, and then it's less opportunity for magic to happen. If you have it, but what it did was the one shot that I remember, the 2 shots that I really thought about, which was the center of the scene, I would always, because I spent time preparing, I always knew, oh, I have to get this. I have to get this. So it gave me some parameters, but it's when I threw it away, it opened it up for any idea to come up. Because if I only have if I only have a specific way,
how is your team reacting? Sorry to interrupt. It's very interesting.
They get the plan. They get the storyboard, so they know what I'm trying to accomplish. But I allow room for opportunities for improvisation. But not in the words. Not in the words. Improvisation
in the picture.
In the picture, because remember, the actor comes with their own interpretation. I know when they walk onto the set, if I'm going to shoot a scene, exactly where I want them to, like for instance, Anthony Hopkins in the cell. When I found him, when the camera revealed, when Edward Norton walked down the hall, and then he came to the cell of Anthony Hopkins, which is with glass, I knew what in my mind the way I wanted Anthony Hopkins. I wanted him laying down when he found him, and I wanted him to start talking like he was on a psychiatrist's bed talking to him while he lay down. That's what I wanted. I did not tell that to him. I did not tell that to Anthony Hopkins. I said, where do you want to be? And he started, oh, I want to be standing. Now, I was disappointed. But I said, let's rehearse. Let's rehearse. So he does one take, standing. He does 2 takes. He does 3 takes. He says, okay, I'm ready to shoot. I said, let's just do one more. And he says, maybe I should try this one laying down.
Yay! This is a psychiatry work, actually.
Well, it's more about letting the actor find his instincts. Let the actor find his moment of realism for him. Because if when he first walks on the set, if I say, you start laying down, then the actor feels like he's in prison. Literally. He has to do this. And when I've done that in the past, the reason I say that is because, I've directed 10 movies. When I've done that in the past, the actor is not comfortable. He goes, Brett, I feel stuck. But if he came up with the idea himself, it's a freedom.
Then, yes. Well, Brett, I have a question about that. You work on a huge movies, like the very expensive ones, and for you, it's okay to let your actor for like 1 hour go around and see either he wants to stay or lay, etc. But what if there is a timing and you need to do it quick and somebody doesn't want to do this way?
That's when I have to tell them. That's when I walk in and I go, you're going to start here. You're going to walk here. You're going to look this way. You're going to shake his hand. And they hate it. But when I have time, when the sun is coming down or something is going to happen, I have to, I have to.
Are you a very strong director? Like, are you strict?
Very strong. I'm very fun. I have, like, my personality. I wanted to, it's not, there's directors who show up with a suit and tie and they're very serious. And it's like they're doing an operation on the brain of a, and and nobody can joke. Nobody can have conversations close to him. I could be telling a joke. I'm getting a massage. And then having a conversation and then jump right into the serious work. So when the camera's rolling, it's very serious. When the camera, when it matters. But in between, we're not saving lives here. We're not working in the emergency room of a hospital where people are dying, and every moment is precious. I'm very efficient. I'm very professional, but I can have a conversation and people can be laughing across the room where I don't have to be, shut up, quiet. This is a movie set. I mean, come on. It's a fucking, excuse me, it's a movie set,
Well, I believe your team knows by looking at you when it's time to stop and really focus on
yeah, work. Of course. And also they know, I work with people more experienced than me, more professional, established as me. So they understand when they're getting the night before the work of the day, they know what we need to do. So they know when we need to pick up the pace or when we need to slow down the pace. They know when we have a difficult situation, how to help me adjust. It's like it's not just me. I mean, I dictate the energy and the pace, but they adjust very well with me.
That's very nice. And you have your team for a long time, right? You don't change. You have your team who knows your character, and your guys are like, okay.
I have people that work for me. I mean, I could say almost every crew person has worked on multiple movies with me. And they're all, sometimes I change the costume designer, sometimes I change the props if my guy isn't available. But
do you have a favorite actor who you like to work with, who you really feel, except Jackie Chan?
Yeah, aside from Jackie Chan. Yeah. I have some actors, if you look at the movies closely, excuse me, I have some actors who I put in the movies 3 or 4 times, the same actor, Don Cheadle, the actor Don Cheadle. He was in Family Man, and then he was in Rush Hour. He was in After the Sunset. He was in a few of my movies. He always is we have great banter. He's so intelligent and such a good actor, but he'll say every time I call him, okay, you want me in your next movie? Let's meet. And then he'll say, okay, I'll be in Rush Hour, because he's a very serious actor. He was in Oceans and a lot of great movies, but only if I speak in Chinese and if I could fight Jackie Chan. So he'll give me parameters, but most of the time I have actors who will be in multiple movies and different characters. Actors that were in Rush Hour and X-Men and Red Dragon. Actors that were in Rush Hour, After the Sunset, and Hercules. So I'll use the same people because they deliver for me, and if they deliver for me, I want to reciprocate. I want to give them appreciation and gratitude for doing good work. So I hire them. They earn a living from this. They make money from this. I want to keep hiring the same actors.
So that guy who you had for 4 movies, what was it so specific from the first time you met him that got you? And also, second question is, have you ever had a actor in your projects without auditioning them? Like, yes. You just walk on the street, you see the person, you're just like, that's right.
I don't know about walk on the street. Yes, maybe once or twice. That's rare. Then I would audition them. But if I've seen them in another movie and I like them in another movie, I'll say, I want you. I mean, I hired a guy from a movie that didn't speak in the movie. He didn't speak. And I thought he was so good at what he was doing that I hired him to come be in my movie. So usually if I see them in a movie, unless it's something specific, I usually like to see them audition. An actor that I put in Hercules is a guy who's a Norwegian actor. I saw a movie called Headhunter. Is it Headhunter?
That's an old movie.
Yeah, it's an older movie. It's a Norwegian movie. I saw this movie and I thought he was so brilliant that I asked him, because usually what I do, which is a trick of mine, I hire an overqualified actor to play a part smaller. They're, not someone maybe that's starring Tom Cruise playing, even though he likes to do cameos and smaller parts, I'll hire an overqualified actor. So I had a part in Hercules of an actor that didn't speak the entire movie in my movie. No words.
I find it really cool.
And I saw this actor in Headhunters named Axel Hennie, a Norwegian actor, that was so good that I said to him, I want you to audition, but I don't know what you'll do because you don't speak in this movie. And I didn't say I want you to audition. I said you can have any part aside from Hercules. Any part you want. If you want to play a woman in this movie, you're brilliant. I want you to be in this movie. He said, no, 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 no. I want, to his credit, he said, I want the part of the guy that doesn't speak.
Oh,
I was shocked.
Wow.
I was shocked. I was shocked. Because what actor wants a part that doesn't speak? An actor wants to speak.
Well, the one who is probably sure that in that he's really good.
No, well, he could. He wanted. It was a challenge for him, and he sent me an audition tape, and it's one of the greatest audition tapes. I think it's on the DVD for Hercules, in the special section or in the hidden. It's hidden there.
Oh, I love that movie of yours.
I put his audition there. I put his audition there. You know what he did in the audition?
What?
He grunted. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Can I do it? Like that?
all he did was grunt.
All he did was,
because he can't speak. He can't speak. And he grunted.
So amazing.
And I was like, this is your part. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. This is your part. You're brilliant. Do it. And that shows you that an actor with no ego, an actor with no, because the best actors are not afraid to show vulnerability on the screen. Yes. A lot of actors want to be cool. They want to be the star. They don't want to look bad. They don't want to lose a fight. If they have a fight, they want, let me get, they're like, let me get in if he's fighting and he's going to lose, let me get in something cool, like a cool punch. Let me have something. It's all ego.
Mm-hmm.
But an actor who's not afraid to show their weaknesses,
yes,
their vulnerabilities, their humanity, is the actor that I love.
Yeah, and that's what we want to see when we're watching acting. We want to see the truth. We want to see the insights, and that's why they pay so much money to actors to be open, not to show off, right?
Yeah.
That's so today from last time I've got so many questions, and many of them about the concept.
And there's a guy watching us now. He's one of the great acting teachers. His name is Bernie Hiller.
Bernie, hello. Nice to see you watching.
Do you know him? Do you know him?
I don't, but I would love to, and I invite you in advance to be a part of my program.
And you should be on his. Sophia, you should take. It's all European, all Russian, all international actors that he teaches, because Bernie's more than just an acting coach. He's also like a life coach. Now, your life is amazing. You're an incredible woman. But I really believe that you should maybe sit in on one of his master classes, because you will love him, because it's all working actors. It's all actors who have, have experience.
I love that. And where is he based?
He's based in LA, he's based in LA, but he's done classes in Poland, in Paris, in Italy, in London. But now with Corona, he's doing master classes on Zoom.
That's awesome. I'm going to get the connection of that person.
Yes,
also,
I will connect you.
I'm going to invite for the acting talk to really speak about this great idea for Universal Actors Talk.
Yeah, he's a great acting coach and a great person, and he's very tough. He's not easy, but he's inspiring. I think you would get a lot out of it. What were you asking me? I forgot.
Yes, I'm reading questions from our last time, as we promised that the guys were writing us questions. So I'm going to just go and ask them. Did you ever had a conflict between actors on set, and how did you, and if yes, how do you resolve that? For example, love scene, people hate each other. What do you do?
I mean, mostly I've had very professional experiences. Every actor's been very professional. I remember the great actor Philip Seymour Hoffman was in Red Dragon. He is actually better off camera than he is on camera. He gives you the greatest performance. But he gives more to the other actor. He's the assist. he's a great at assisting. In like basketball, there's the guy that throws the ball to the other guy to score.
Yeah, I understand exactly.
He's the best assist. He wants the other actor to be the best that they can be. And Edward Norton, again, was feeding him, feeding him other lines that were not written. And he came to me and he said, Brett, I don't like what he's doing. He's giving me lines that are confusing me. Because some actors, Edward Norton knows every line in the script from every other actor as well as his own lines. So he thought that he was going to throw him. He wanted to improvise and play. And Philip Seymour Hoffman didn't like it. And he didn't want to confront him. So I had to go talk to Edward and say, Edward, stop doing that. So it's basically.
It's really destroying.
It's basically a conversation. So the only actor as you can see I've had, which is difficult, is Edward Norton. But there's been difficult situations. But at the end of the day, nothing dramatic happened, except when I almost got in a fist fight with Woody Harrelson.
Yes, that's what we're waiting for. So tell us some fire story, please.
No, Woody is a vegan. He doesn't eat animals. He doesn't wear leather. He doesn't use cell phones. He's very much anti-technology, and we had a scene where he had to shoot a shark in the movie.
Oh.
But it was a fake shark.
Oh.
But he said, I cannot shoot the shark. This is against my belief. I said, but it's not you shooting the shark. It's the character shooting the shark.
Right. Smart.
It's okay. And he argued with me, and he argued with me, and he argued with me. And then he tried to change the scene in the middle of the scene with Pierce Brosnan. And Pierce Brosnan, like Anthony Hopkins, reads the script 100 times because he doesn't improvise. He sticks to the story.
Mm-hmm.
He sticks to the story. And I was yelling at, normally the way I talk to actors is I pull them away from the set and I have a personal conversation. Not outside the set.
But this is outrageous.
No, but we were on but we were on the boat.
Right.
And he was on a boat in the middle of the ocean. So I had to speak to him through a loudspeaker.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're giving direction to somebody, an actor, on a loudspeaker, everyone is watching to see if he does what you tell him to do.
Right.
So the actors don't like direction screamed at them. Mm-hmm. They want you to tell them face to face. And he got very angry. And we started yelling at each other because I was yelling direction and he wasn't listening. He was changing the scene. And I kept saying, no, and he wanted to try something because he told me I don't want to shoot the shark. So he said, let me try to change the scene so I don't have to shoot the shark. And I was saying, no,
the shark.
but I was getting seasick on the water. And I wanted to finish the scene because I wanted to get it over with, and he wanted to play, and we got.
Yes, and it's been written on the script. Damn,
and he jumped in the water and swam to come punch me.
What?
He jumped in the water to come, but he didn't realize it's the ocean, and the ocean has a pool. So he kept swimming, and he couldn't get to me. He kept swimming, and by the time he got to me, he was so tired he couldn't punch me. He said, I'm going to come and I'm going to punch you.
He forgot what he was flying to for.
Yeah. So that was a famous fight.
That was a famous fight. Yeah, but like that, it's still, even for our audience, it's very interesting. Even a Brett Ratner, director, A-list actor, director in the world, has situations where actors, they don't listen. I mean, I cannot believe it.
It happens.
You have to, actors have their own strong opinion on set as soon as they sign contract. That's very, very, and by the way, while you're walking there was a question from somebody to show your place. So I'm going to cross that question. Brett Ratner is showing where he is.
To show my house?
Yes, show the.
What was the question?
Yes, the question was, where are you based, and can you show us a little bit what's around you? That's how it says.
Oh, well, this is that's a window, see?
Your house is very famous.
Yes.
House is in, it's right next to Beverly Hills Hotel,
Yeah,
right?
see? Yeah. It was Ingrid Bergman's house. See?
Mm-hmm. Very beautiful. What's your favorite thing in your house? The one that you would never sell for any money in the world.
Okay, well, this, I don't care about awards. Wait, where is it? This is the Golden Globe from The Revenant.
Yes.
You know the movie The Revenant?
Oh, yes.
So this is the Golden Globe, but this is given to me by the director of The Revenant. How do I turn this?
What was it again?
How do I turn this around?
You should double press on the screen and it will turn. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. This is given to me by the director of The Revenant. 1823. This is the book that Leonardo DiCaprio was holding in his hand. Remember, he was writing in a book the whole time in The Revenant. Remember The Revenant?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And look at this. It's
That's
made
the real
now, but
thing.
see, it's a daguerreotype.
Yeah, this is amazing.
See?
Oof, I've got goosebumps.
See? So all the actors, but it's original. See all the dirt? See all the dirt?
Mm-hmm.
Each character, but it's the same book. The director made a few of them. See Tom Hardy?
Yes.
Even playing cards. Even remember the Indians in the movie, remember?
Right.
Even the hair of the Indian. The hair. The hair of
in there. Look at that.
See? And
I
here,
can feel an energy from that book right away. It's really incredible.
Here is, see, these are all called daguerreotypes. And here's a note from the director. You know, Alejandro Inarritu Gonzalez. And it says, this has been the most difficult, challenging, and rewarding motherfucking roller coaster experience I have had in my life. Thank you for that and support during the whole journey. And it has been a privilege to have survived it with you. Un abrazo cabrón, Inarritu.
So honest.
Which is, yeah.
With passion.
See, The Revenant. See?
Yes.
So if my house was burning, this would be the thing that I would probably take with me, probably. If I could take one thing, I would take this. If I would take two things, it would be my grandmother. I would take her with me. And
that was mean right now.
No, I'm joking.
But you're reading my mind. My question was like, what would be the first thing you would?
And then the next thing I would take would be a wrap gift from my favorite movie, Raging Bull. Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro gave this as a gift to everybody. I'm going to lose you if I show you because it's bad service, but it's a pair of boxing gloves, silver boxing gloves.
Well, don't lose me though.
No. That's what I'm saying. I don't have service down there, so I don't. So, what other question?
What movies have you watched during the quarantine? Because while you're speaking, you're answering those questions, and it's just so natural and amazing. You're the best interviewer. What films have you watched during the quarantine?
Mm-hmm.
And here, that's why I got a little stuck, because I saw Indians in your book, and I remembered the question that I had about Indians. Do you like to watch films about the Indians? Have you ever thought of making film about them?
Oh, so what the films I've watched in the quarantine? Let's see. I've been watching a lot of television series. I watch a series that is my favorite series. Is called Fauda.
Fauda.
Fauda. Fauda. And
I wrote it down.
It's an Israeli series. And it's about the Shin Bet, which is like the Israeli version of the FBI, basically, and how they infiltrate Palestine and how they infiltrate terrorism. And it's one of the best shows, the best acting, the best performances, the best style, the best tone. It is and it's made in Israel with subtitles with Hebrew and Arabic. And it's one of they said they hated it. Okay. That's funny.
No, well,
I don't care. I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant, and you should watch it. And it's called
I'm gonna watch it. Fauda. I wrote it down, and I just there was a question right now. Very interesting. That's why I got interrupted.
Okay, what is it?
Book of your Yes, I agree, Brett. You should make a museum of your collections because nobody has those things that you have and you love them.
Thank you.
So that's really awesome. And okay, and when are you gonna come back to Russia? I can see that. And why did you first came to Russia? What was the reason for you to come first time?
My grandparents are from Ukraine, from Kiev, and my dream was to always go to Russia because I grew up watching movies that were filmed in, took place in Russia, and just like Hong Kong Rush Hour, I always wanted to. I saw a movie with Bruce Lee, and I wanted to go. My dream was to go, so I finally went to Russia. My mother had gone, and I had not gone, and I went, and I was lucky because my partner was Russian. So for me, it was like the greatest experience of my life to be in Russia. I went to the Bolshoi the first time, and I have good friends in Russia, maybe a few children in Russia, but okay. But I loved it. I loved Moscow. I loved the food, the people. I went to a place which was like a speakeasy. You know what a speakeasy is?
Speakeasy, yes. It's like
where
it's a bar, I think.
It's like a bar. It's kind of in a location, not in a bar, but in a private location. And they were singing. They were doing songs. There was women walking around in like costumes, but from period, like from 1920, and they were talking Russian, but they were acting. They were playing characters. So they would come up to they would come up to people and perform for you and say, "Can I talk to you?" And they start telling you, "I'll show you the video." It's amazing. But everybody was pretending. They were all actors. Everybody was actors and musicians.
Very interesting. Like in New York, Drunk Shakespeare. I went to see that one. So good. Yeah. Drunk Shakespeare.
And then I went. Yeah. And then I went to see. I went to see. Let me see what else. Oh, I went to the Banya, which was great. The Banya was amazing, and I got hit with the leaves.
Well, next time you come, I'm going to show you more places, and we've got 1 minute left. I'm just so afraid to interrupt our conversation.
I'm sorry, I was so late. Yeah.
No, it's okay. We're always happy to see you. I'm just by listening to your stories in my head, there's a vision of set of like relationship. You working in there, I got so into the story that I actually was like, okay, next time I'm gonna just ask questions.
Anytime, I'm always happy to talk to you because you're so lovely. You're such an amazing person. And
Brett,
I'm such a big fan of yours.
Give us a present. Send us some actor who you really love to our Actors Talk. Pass a message. Let's see who we can really chat with.
Okay, let me think of somebody great. Okay, great.
And big
Pleasure.
kiss, and I'm gonna still work on sending you that medicine. It
No,
took me
don't worry,
forever.
don't worry.
No,
I'm gonna
I
come
want to
to
make it
Moscow.
happen.
I'm gonna come to Moscow and see you, and then it's a good reason for us to get together.
Yes, for sure. And big
Okay.
kiss, love, and say
Big
hello
kiss,
to your
love.
grandma and ma, and be safe, please.
I will. Thank you so
Mwah,
much.
mwah.
Bye
Thanks
bye.
a lot.
Okay, bye.